Good afternoon. The eminent taxonomists and young budding taxonomists. Actually, we are running late by 2 hours, and I'm not taking too much time introduction. But for the past several years, I have been hearing that there is dearth of taxonomists. But I am sure that there is no dearth of taxonomists. Because as I have been associated with IIT for the past 25 years, we have very good young budding scientists or taxonomists, at least in the angiosperm field. And I have been experiencing this the past several years in IIT meetings. Very good presentations, very good publications, but we have the dearth of opportunities for the taxonomists. I know very well good taxonomists, they are working as some office work or some clerical job in some. So we have to find out this for these young taxonomists. And I'm not taking much time. Actually, I thank the organizers, especially Dr. Mao and other organizers and his team for inviting me for this international seminar and also giving me opportunity to chair this session. So today afternoon, there are 4 invited lead lectures. One is Dr. R.R. Rao, Paton, S.R.Yadav, and Dr. Esteban Manrique. So, Dr. R.R. Rao, there is no need of any introduction to Dr. R.R. Rao. He worked on systematics of the flora of Mysore. He made notable contributions to various topics related to the flora and phytogeography of Northeast Indian region. More than 20 new taxa were described by him through these studies. His other research areas of interest relate to ferns and fan alleles of Northeast India, ethnobotany, reproductive biology of endangered species, and assessment and conservation of biodiversity. He worked in several leading herbaria of the world. He also authored over 200 research papers and 15 books, including some edited books, and guided 14 PhD students. And Dr. Rao was the chief editor of the journal Ethnobotany and was also on editorial board of Current Science. He has also served as nominated member of national level committees of DST, DBT, CSIR, and MOA. He is also the chairman of State Environmental Appraisal Committee of Government of Karnataka. Dr. Rao was awarded various prestigious awards like Pitambar Pant National Environment Fellowship by the Ministry of Environment and Forests, William Hasberger Medal by the Society of Ethnobotanists 1994, and Professor B.A. Rasi Medal by Association of Plant Taxonomy, and Talented Scientist Award by SV University, then Scientist of the Year Award by National Environmental Science Academy, and Y.D. Tyagi Medal by Indian Association for Angiosperm Taxonomy. He was president of the Society of Ethnobotanists of 6 years and also the Indian Botanical Society. And moreover, I have been in touch with Dr. Rao, and in one sentence I can say that he's a taxonomist who supports other taxonomists. Wherever he was in many committees, he supported the taxonomists of India. So please, sir, please come and deliver lecture. And it is for 20 minutes.
Good afternoon, and I thank the chairman for giving this opportunity to talk. My lecture is actually prepared for an hour's talk. Therefore, much of my slides I will skip, but wherever it is needed I will try to tell. But all the slides, whatever I have brought, I think there is some content which support the traditional taxonomy. I am a traditional taxonomist almost by birth, and I always fight for traditional taxonomy. And you may say I am a conservative as far as my thinking is concerned, and discuss a few issues where so many problems we are all facing. This is the title, changing scenario, which I will skip, I will not be able to cover. And current problems, what are the current problems in taxonomy I will try to highlight, and also a future prospects, a few issues where taxonomy can diversify in the coming decades. Plant taxonomy, in an organization like this, Botanical Survey, defining taxonomy is meaningless. Everybody knows what is taxonomy. But what I would like to highlight is, taxonomy is the study of, study of various, the battery is very low. Study of, I think, please see this red one, study of variation pattern in plants. That is the main, and their classification. Study of variation pattern, that has been, we have been following this ever since even the Linnaeus time and even pre-Linnaean days also, the study of variation pattern and classifying. But today, this variation pattern is almost neglected. Not only neglected, and people now, some biologists even think that morphological variation is neither necessary nor sufficient for species delimitation as well as speciation. So where are we now? Where is taxonomy? Where is the definition? If morphological variation is not sufficient, nor it is even sufficient, or even it is required for speciation, then that is the question which I am going to argue for some time in the next. Importance of taxonomy, of course. I want all of you to read all this, because without taxonomy nothing can be done. I think Babu Marling also said, even in the coming days also, whatever may be, whatever the advances we may make in any area, taxonomy always survives. We are very confident, whether you want me, you don't want me, it is immaterial, but without me, you cannot expect the identification of plants. It is the taxonomists only who can identify the plants. That's the one thing I will try to go through. And our jobs are this: determining what a species is, distinguishing these species from others through keys and descriptions. Yes, that is our job. Investigating their interrelationships, which the phylogeny, the cladists have been doing, and also determining proper names of species using ICN. This is another one very important thing. What I want to say. Now, classification, we all know, grouping of different taxa into different orders, families, and all that. And similarly, the naming. What is naming? Recognizing an unknown plant to be similar to a known plant, and accordingly we give a name. That is the naming. That's simply identification. That is simple identification. Now, in this process, if you are not able to identify a species which is almost similar to an already a known plant, then we think it is a new species and give a new name, right? So that is what is, I very quickly I am just trying to summarize. And oftentimes we have been criticized. Many times, Dr. Gandhi is not here. Yes, taxonomists have no other business except upsetting the well-established names. This is one thing, criticisms. And oftentimes when we change the name, they all the question this, that are you bigger than Linnaeus? Are you bigger than Hooker? You are changing the name of Linnaeus? You are changing the name of Hooker? No, there is no question of bigger or smaller anything. And we do not change the plant name just for the sake of publication or just for the sake of fashion. Now the entire nomenclature is governed. I want, I think the battery should be changed. This is absolutely not working. Please read this. One name should be given to one species, and contrary to this also, if there are two names, what will you do? That is number one. Second one taxon should have only one name. The entire nomenclature is centered around this. If all the name changes, whatever we are all thinking about the name changes, is because of this. If there are two names for a same plant, what will you do? One name you have to remove, because science is universal. That you should understand. We cannot retain two names. Because science is universal, one name you have to delete. That is how the name changes. Similarly, the same name is applied to two different taxa, two different species. What will you do? We have to change the name. So keeping this, we do name changes regularly, right? Now taxonomy today is relevant to all these spheres. It is not just only for taxonomic researchers, like writing monographs or identification or inventorization and other, but today we need for biodiversity assessment. Yes. Biodiversity assessment, conservation program, ecosystem management, and we need even in forensic science. How many places taxonomy is taught, the role of taxonomy in forensic science? I don't think any university is teaching this. Also, discovery of new drug plants, and in customs for sites operation, taxonomy is needed even in places, international ports where taxonomy is needed. Taxonomists, always find it difficult to get a job. But I will tell you that taxonomy is needed in all these areas. So where taxonomists, if really taxonomists are appointed in all the one taxonomy in Indian universities, we need 1,500 taxonomists we don't have in the country. I will tell you. But the problem is that yes, they are not being appointed. It is a different thing. I will come to that question. And ethnobotany and discovery of new economic plants, all these areas, taxonomy is needed. Now this part I will skip because if you historically, if I go, I will have to talk a long time. It started as a folk taxonomy, yes, and there are three different periods. Number one is exploratory period, and then it starts the biosystematic period and all that. But understand, in the exploratory period, two events have taken place. The two major milestones I will call. Number one is the concept of herbarium. So that development of the concept of herbarium that paved the way for collection of plants all over the world. That is number one. The other one is the enunciation of the binomial system of nomenclature. Now that is the greatest contribution Linnaeus has done, because the greatest problem we had was in naming and even understanding the botanical names, because earlier names to Linnaeus binomial system were all polynomials. Polynomials which Professor Babu showed a name which are 4-line description. And there are, see, for example, Saida acuta was known as Althea, Coromandelina, Angustis, Prolongis, Foliae, Bicarniae. It is a long description in Latin. So that was the name. So can you imagine how much difficult it is to remember the name? So Linnaeus gave this binomial system, greatest contribution is done, and these two things have revolutionized the plant taxonomy. And after these two things, one is collection is simple and naming is simple, because both of these things, and earlier botany was nothing but taxonomy only. Everybody was doing taxonomy, so collecting plants, giving a name, collecting plants, giving a name. This resulted in enormous confusion because in the absence of any international set of rules, people started naming same plant, 10 names, 20 names. There are species with 27 names. So what will you do? We have to cut the names, all the 26. So there is a rule, whichever the name is published earlier, the earlier, most earlier, that one should be retained. And that is how, following the International Code of Nomenclature, we change the things. And in this period, what happened? Yes, these classifications started arriving. First, initially, natural, artificial systems, then came the natural systems of classification, and today, phylogenetic system of classification. Why phylogenetic system of classification? Darwin, for the first time, in his book, Origin of Species, the evolutionary ideas were first put forward. And this was followed by, again, the great workers like I have written all this. You can, all the students can take these slides, there's no problem. Dobzhansky, he proposed the biological species concept. And he also said at one place that nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. This is the greatest, I think this is a great statement, but we have been forced to use this. Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. Whether it is phylogeny, we have to bring in evolution. Whether it is naming, we have to bring in evolution. So this is the thing that has created great damage to the taxonomy. Now, I think I will skip this. See the two issues. One is orthodox taxonomy, that is phenotypic classification, observation of characters, morphological characters, and study of classification. That is orthodox. That is pre-Linnaean and even the folk taxonomy, they did this. Now, in contrary, today, large number of newer disciplines. In fact, taxonomy is the only subject which has been attacked by all other subjects. From time and again, taxonomy is being attacked. Cytology emerged, yes, you should take cytological data. Anatomy emerged, you should take anatomical data. Like that, ecology, embryology, and today molecular biology sitting on all our heads saying that yes, you should use molecular data. Now, I will talk about the problems in using molecular data later. Now, I am very fond of quoting this in all my lectures. This is Hallier in 1905, a typical orthodox taxonomist, when at that time no molecular biology or any modern disciplines were not there. At that time, he says this. I think every one of you should read yourself. I don't want to say. So the orthodox taxonomists knew that all these aspects of what today we are talking, that we should also use in our classification. Although we practice herbarium taxonomy, at the background, we all know all this. As an orthodox taxonomy, we know there is nothing. You using cytology, using anatomy, using ecology, using physiology, all that known. That is the statement. Now, but then also, what does it convey? All these new disciplines have emerged. They give us better understanding of the process of trends of evolution. That's the one thing that we understand now today. It is not a static one. The species, as we thought earlier, it is not a static. It is a dynamic one. It goes on changing. And in this process, many new species are being emerging. Many new species are being also described because it is not static. From old species, new species are being emerged. Now, keeping this background, let us think of the problem today in the country, with reference to in this country I am talking. Now it has become a synthetic discipline. I think that we should all accept that. Now, for anything question comes now, what you are doing, anybody asks you, yes, I am identifying plants based on the morphology. Immediate response is, why don't you use molecular biology? Why don't you, my question is, yes, elephant and camel, if I have to distinguish between these two, why should I use molecular biology? It is very easy for me that I can distinguish by seeing itself. So that is one. But it has become synthetic discipline. As few years ago, Babu and Johri at some paper, they said, today taxonomy is chemo, cyto, histo, morpho, molecular, taxonometrics. So all these things, anything you talk, yes, you should. Now what does it mean? It's a cooperative endeavor. In fact, taxonomy cannot be written by only one person, chemo, cyto, histo, everything cannot be done, but it is a cooperative. But unfortunately in the country, you know how much cooperative studies or collaborative studies are going on. I think that's one criticism that we are having. Now, there is a plus point for me. Plus point for me means as an orthodox taxonomy, we with 10x lens, just ordinary 10x lens, dead specimens, dead herbarium specimens, thousands and thousands of species we have identified, whether it is lineals, whether it is hooker, whether it is white, all these thousands of names have been described with ordinary 10x lens with dead plants using external morphology. How many of these species are proved wrong? So that is a plus point for me as an orthodox taxonomy. My findings are correct. How many of them, even negligible percent of our findings are proved wrong? So therefore, taxonomy, the orthodox taxonomy or morphological taxonomy cannot be wrong. So whatever we see, after all, morphology is nothing but the manifestation of thousands of genes. Today, if you are studying 1, 2, 3, 4 genes for classification purpose, our morphology is a manifestation of thousands of genes. So therefore, orthodox taxonomists cannot go wrong. 99% yes, we are correct. Yes, when it comes to subspecies or below the infraspecific categories, yes, there may be some amount of molecular biology may be required in distinguishing. I think that is where the infraspecific taxonomy, molecular taxonomy helps. And also you should understand, now if I have to do all this, the rate at which the new species are being discovered, the Botanical Survey brings out a book every year where how many new species are coming, more than I think 200 species per year. They are all new species are being added. That shows the extent of work that still remains, exploratory work that remains to be done. Now it is at this time that if I start doing chemo, cyto, histo, morpho, molecular taxonomy, I will not be able to complete even 10 species in my entire lifetime. So therefore, the time at the disposal of the orthodox taxonomists is very short. So therefore, they should be encouraged to take up work orthodox taxonomy. So that is one thing. And the biodiversity at the same time is sinking. After 50 years, I think I saw a slide, what would be the rate of, what would be the ethnobotany after 50 years. Now, after the 50 years ethnobotany, there may not be any ethnobotany, according to me. Thousands and thousands of years the ethnobotany has persisted. the information from one generation to other generation has percolated over several centuries. It is a time-tested information. It is accurate. All that I accept. But today, what is happening is that the Adivasi people are being, they are also studying in Indian Institute of Science. They are also studying in Pune, Bombay, Calcutta. So they do not believe their own belief. Whatever their parents say, yes, this information, if you go and cut the tree, some snake will come and bite you, or this is Krishna is sitting on this tree. That kind of beliefs have gone now. So there is a drastic erosion of the ethnic knowledge. Therefore, we may not, after 50 years, what will happen? There may not be, the entire information may be lost. I think that possibility is also there. And today, funding is a big problem. All the funding agencies, Professor not here. The problem is, yes, you apply for a project in taxonomy. I was in the DST for a number of years. Apply for a project. If somebody wants to take up a flora of some special areas, botanical survey is there, they are doing, why do you want to do? So as if everything botanical survey will do. And then the question is, yes, there is nothing new. What is that you want to do? You only bring a plant and make an herbarium specimen and then take a description which is already available some 100 years ago. What is that you are going to do new? So there is nothing new. There is no science. So there is a kind of apathy towards this subject. So therefore, getting funding is a big problem. Alternate terms like say biodiversity. I am doing biodiversity. Yes, biodiversity assessment of Himalaya. Yes, you will get funds. It is the same thing, flora writing, you will do. But then you will get the funds. So this is the kind of thing, that kind of things that is going on is another problem. And today, most of the very fashionable areas like molecular biology, biotechnology, environmental biology, applied biology, these are all the areas which have become so fashionable, and the taxonomy is treated as a monotonous, unfashionable subject having no applied value. That is in the minds. So therefore, today, taxonomy is particularly in the universities, there are no takers. The reason is, I always say that taxonomy is the most fascinating area. I don't think there is any other subject, according to me, which is more fashionable or more interesting than taxonomy. But the only thing is, the way the subject has to be put before the students, that makes a difference. If you are really a trained teacher in taxonomy, you know the limits of the subject, so you know how to put the subject before the student and make it attractive. So definitely, all the students will try to take taxonomy or the special paper rather than even molecular biology, but depends on the teachers. But unfortunately, in most of the universities in the country, there are no trained taxonomists are teaching the subject. With the result, the taxonomy is suffering today. Not that taxonomy is not fascinating, it's not interesting, it is the most interesting subject. But yes, there is a kind of brainwashing is needed today, and that brainwashing has to be done by expert taxonomists. So then only it is possible. Faulty method of teaching. In fact, most of the universities faulty. What is the kind of teaching is, the university, whether it is a degree, whether it is a PUC or an MSc, the taxonomy teaching is nothing but narrating the family characters of a certain families, and also writing at the end a floral diagram giving how many stamens are there, how many carpels are there, and all that. Neither the teacher knows, nor the student knows what is the need of this writing, what is the significance of this, no. So people talk of the characters of the plants, whatever is given in the book. Obdiplostemony, people talk of rutaceae. What is obdiplostemony? Yes, they say obdiplostemony. In rutaceae, obdiplostemon's condition is there. Yes, the student also writes the same thing in the exam and get the marks. Neither a teacher knows, nor the student knows what is obdiplostemony. This is the kind of teaching that is going on. Rather, you take them to the field, tell them, let every student take the one plant in the hand and find out what are the characters are there. Each character, each student sees those things, and the teacher summarizes, the entire family, whichever the family is, can be taught. As a teacher, I have done this all through. I have never used any book. I used to take all my students, whether it is even nomenclature, I used to teach in the field. So that possibility is there, provided you know the limits of the subject and how to teach, then make the subject more interesting. Yes, I am coming. Then unsuccessful collaborative efforts in bioprospection. Today, without taxonomy, bioprospection cannot be done. Unsuccessful collaborative. So unsuccessful collaborative means, see, when there is a professor from DBT, large number of projects were given at that time. I think you may be knowing, large number of projects were given between taxonomists and molecular biologists for bioprospection. And at the end, when the reports came, the molecular biologists gave their own report, and the taxonomists gave this is a rare plant, an endangered species, or a rare plant, new species, or that kind of report. There was not a combined one. And when I asked these things, what is the reason why there is not one report, and why? No, sir, there is nothing he has done. Taxonomists have not done anything except telling the names of the plants. And I had to tell them, you want to tell the name of a plant, we need 30 years, 50 years of experience at the back. So it is not simply the name comes. On the other hand, you make some exercise. The molecular biologist comes and then asks for a name. You tell them, yes, yes, I will tell you the name, please sit. You take some section, cut and put it in the microscope and see, or bring the biggest book available in your library and go through the pages and say that, yes, this is very difficult, you come tomorrow. You tell him 3-4 times to come, and 4th day you tell, yes, this is the plant I have identified, it is the Parthenium mysteroporus. You tell him, yeah, then he thinks, yes, taxonomy is very difficult. But unfortunately, in our country, this is the problem. The person who comes, yeah, this is Sida acuta, this is Zarnia. You tell the name, that's all. What is your contribution? So this is the trend. So unsuccessful collaborative effort, that's going on. So therefore, I think these are all the things that need to be changed. Yes, I will. Yes. Yeah, please.
Excuse me, I just want to mention one thing, that BSI is going to provide travel assistance. It's not a reimbursement, I repeat, it's a travel assistance to all the participants up to the level of assistant professors. So tomorrow when you are coming, please bring your Xerox copy of the I-card and the ticket, maybe it is train ticket or flight ticket, whatever it is. We will collect it and we will provide you a travel assistance. Thank you. Please carry on.
Yeah. And then taxonomy is in the forefront for all biodiversity assessments. When this biodiversity, what you call the bandwagon started, I was very happy. Yes, now taxonomies are going to be very important, because without taxonomy, biodiversity cannot be assessment and all that. So we will get lots of money, all my biodiversity taxonomy friends will get money and they can do the work. But unfortunately, again I will tell you, it is the experimental biologists, the molecular biologists sat on our head and say biodiversity assessment doesn't mean only writing description and then making a checklist of plant, but it is the genetic diversity that is more important. So they again took away all the opportunities of the taxonomies, and that is where taxonomies were pushed back again, because this is 40 years what I have experienced, I have been telling. So this is again biology, the taxonomies are pushed back. Another problem, taxonomic journals have no impact factors. This is another problem. What is the, why you want impact factor? If he is publishing a new species, it may not have any impact factor. But publish a new species, publish a new genus, it's an Herculean task. He has to, world literature he has to classify, make sure that this is a new species. It is not so easy. It is the greatest contribution a taxonomist can do, but no recognition for a new species. Citation, if I publish a new species of Euphorbiaceae, how many people will cite that in the world? Those persons who are working on Euphorbiaceae may cite absolutely no citation index. So these are all the problems taxonomists are facing today, and they are being evaluated with another person who has worked and published in papers in molecular biology, plant systematic journal, physiology and all that, where high impact journals are there. So therefore taxonomists are being, they are not they are a failure in when they are compared with the modern biology. That's another one. And then herbarium, this is another thing. The university systems, most of the university systems, all the teachers, it is the university teachers who are, I think, responsible for damaging the subject in the country. Herbaria are considered as redundant. There is no, herbaria are considered, are the herbaria redundant? Unwanted, something unwanted. Now, I have questioned this, and also, I want to say, it is not just a place where dead plants are kept. Herbarium is not a place where just dead plants are kept. Not repository. Helps in all kinds of research, taxonomy. I think each one is very important. I can talk each one elaborately, but I think now I will not. But understand, herbarium plays an important role in all our requirement. So therefore, herbarium is not a redundant, but unfortunately today, there are no herbaria, even established universities where once taxonomy flourished, today the herbaria are all dying. In fact, there are no persons, no takers, and in fact no curators, all the specimens are being destroyed. And taxonomies are derogated as simple Namkaran Pandits or simply namers, giving a name, that's all. But it is not that one. But if you do not accept the well-established names, but we do give names according to the digitization, the taxonomies are not developing computer databases today. They are being developed by computer specialists, and they do not know the intricacies of nomenclature. So with the result, what is happening is, yes, there is a name published in one flora as so and so by Wallich, another will say Wall, and both the names will go in the computer database because he is not knowing Wallich is different, Wall is different, so they think and put. So this is the kind of databases that is going on, and that is again a problem that we are facing. So one of our environment secretary at one time, Professor Kosho, he has made a statement, taxonomies are a vanishing tribe today, but they are today overshadowed by the so-called second-rate, please read this, they are overshadowed by the second-rate biotechnologies in the country. Now, I will even say they are overshadowed by third-rate biotechnologies in this country. I think that's the thing I just want to say. Now, there is another, this is I think 2 minutes at least, please. There is globally, everywhere, taxonomic impediment, taxonomic crisis. This is the very attractive term, taxonomic impediment, taxonomic crisis. I will say taxonomy itself is in crisis, not taxonomic crisis. It is taxonomy itself is in crisis. What is taxonomic impediment or taxonomic crisis? Non-availability of taxonomic information to other biologists. Non-availability of information. It could be because of the shortage of taxonomies. But in India, there is the first one, non-availability of taxonomic information is not there. Botanical Survey is there, many of the universities are there, NBRI is there, they always supply the information. But shortage of taxonomy is always there. But I will say, instead of taxonomic crisis, taxonomy is in crisis. Lot of problems are there, so therefore, I think this has to be solved. Now, how can you solve this? And some gentlemen, they say, solution is cyber taxonomy, put everything on computer. They put in the internet, public, large number of these world web-based taxonomic projects are there, large number of them. Has it solved or has it removed the taxonomic impediment? Now, can people identify their plants making use of these things? No, none of these things will help in identifying our plants. And added to this, there are people who said that there are taxonomy cannot be identified only by, the plants cannot be identified only by orthodox taxonomies. There are molecular methods. People talked about barcodes and molecular taxonomy is there, we can identify, we don't need it. Now he says at one place, Godfrey, I have just quoted this, I think you can make sure of, why invest in training taxonomies when machines can do the job? I think this is the greatest foolishness, I think I will say. Why invest in taxonomy, in training the taxonomy, when machines can do the job for us? Is there a machine which I press the button and the identification comes? No. He says, yes, there are barcodes. Now, let me tell you, barcodes can recognize an identified plant, but it cannot identify a plant. Please understand this. They can recognize an identified plant, but it will not identify. So therefore, barcodes, yes, whatever I have identified, you may fix a barcode. And you are able to fix the barcode provided it is a true linear species. We are having no variation. If there is a highly polymorphic species, how can you fix a barcode? At least for one species, you may have to have 10 barcodes. So that possibility is there. We are all talking of ideal cases and say that yes, it can be done, but that is not possible. So therefore, these are some of these things I just wanted to emphasize. Time is over, but very quickly I am going to putting all these things. But as I said in this thing, the taxonomy is going to take a revolution in the 21st century. Whether somebody wants orthodox taxonomy or not, at least I am guaranteed, at least my survival is guaranteed, because without me, it cannot be identified. That guarantee is there for me. Without orthodox taxonomy, world will not move. So therefore, always the subject will survive. whatever may be the newer areas that may come, it may go, but the orthodox taxonomy will always survive. Because you see, I have just given the global flowering plants could rise from present 2,72,000 almost to 3 million specimens. Who will identify that? Even if you don't want me, after 10 years, only it is me I have to identify. So that guarantee is there for orthodox taxonomists. Yes. Quickly and go, new technologies, yes, and then molecular biology and taxonomy have come. Taxonomy is required in climate change. People are talking of climate change, and it is the taxonomy. I think great role they can play in the taxonomy in the study. For example, you go to the oldest herbaria and take 10 specimens collected some 200, 300, 400 years ago and find out the phenological data from the herbarium specimen, go to the same space today and find out any phenological variation, any phenophases, if there is any variation, that is all due to the climatic change. That's one thing. And highest altitudes known for a flowering plant, that you go to the highest altitude and which was recorded some 100 years ago, and today you go to the same place and find out the altitude has gone up or altitude has come down, that clearly indicates the climatic change. So this is where taxonomists can play a role in the study of climate. Now this is the highest altitude so far known as Chrysolia himalayensis and Lamiaceae plant, just for your information. Customs and forensic science taxonomy is needed in solving crimes, and taxonomy for common man, for societal needs is needed. And ethnobotany, I think this conference is also related to ethnobotany. Ethnobotany, if you want to do any work, the taxonomy again, without taxonomy, ethnobotany cannot be worked. I have written the details of some of these things I will read. And in ethnobotany also, I think my ethnobotany friends are there. Now I would like to add only one thing. Today, ethnic leads are all time-tested leads. Because hundreds of years, thousands of years, the information has percolated and it is perfected today. So ethnic leads are 100% perfect. But the problem today is, if I want to know how many plants are there which are all anti-diabetic, all the tribes, if you see, there may be 500 species in our country which may be anti-diabetic plants. Same is the case for cancer, jaundice, anything you take, there may be 500, 600 plants. But can anybody tell, out of these 500 plants, can give you 5 best plants so that I can go for product development? We have no answer today. In spite of the ethnic knowledge we have, tremendous ethnic knowledge, we do not have shortlisting or prioritization of the species because our ethnic knowledge is only tribal based, each tribe based ethnic knowledge. There is no comparative account and say that how many tribes are using the same plant for the same ailment. That is what is called cross-cultural ethnobotany. We do not have cross-cultural ethnic knowledge. Unless you do that, and prioritization of species is not possible. So ethnobotany, when we talk, taxonomy plays a major role, but we should go for cross-cultural ethnic knowledge so that we can prioritize species for product development. I think I will go to the last one now. In the medicinal plant, today, one of the main 21st century needs is converting our biological wealth into economic wealth. I think it is an underlined agenda for all of us, whatever we do, converting our biological wealth into economic wealth, and in doing so, medicinal plant is one such group which can be directly converted into an economic product. Now, taxonomy plays a major role in medicinal plant research. Where are it placed? I made a big list. All the places, number of cases where ethnobotany is there. Without taxonomy, all this cannot be studied. You cannot read yourself. And one thing I will say is correct identity of medicinal plants. There are innumerable cases of misidentification of medicinal plants. It is the taxonomists who have to help. Again, I will tell you. Now, the classical example is the Plectranthus, which is an anti-jaundice plant. Plectranthus neruri. In Indian floras, in most of our regional floras, it goes under the name Plectranthus neruri, which is not an Indian plant, which is an American plant. And what is Indian plant? It is a complex of 3 species, Amuras, debilis and fraternus. These are the 3 species, which we have, as a taxonomist, we can classify this. So now, large number of publications have gone under the name Plectranthus neruri, medicinal plant papers. If you see in the Google it out and you will see under Plectranthus neruri, large number of publications are there. Plectranthus neruri. Plectranthus neruri does not occur in India. Then which is that plant? It could be any one of this. But can we say, to fix the correct identity, this is the plant? Because we cannot now, because they have not maintained any voucher specimen. In the absence of any voucher specimen, we cannot fix the correct identity of those plants on which thousands of publications have appeared. So this is the mistake. You know, in the absence of a classical taxonomist, what is going to happen is this kind of thousands of such examples are there where the medicinal plant, they have gone under wrong name and published under them. Several publications have come. I think that needs to be. I think I will close up this. I have taken a little more time. There are many things I wanted to discuss. As I said, I had prepared for a lecture of almost 1 hour. No time. And some other time I will talk. But these slides, I think those of you are interested, you should copy and then I think make use of those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. And I have been hearing this talk for the past 20 years. With same energy, he is talking even today at this age. He is talking on taxonomy. So we have to appreciate him, and he is traveling throughout India for giving talk on taxonomy. So thank you, sir. Next speaker is Dr. Alan Paton. He is talking on systematics of Plectranthus and Coleus and implications for medicinal study. So Dr. Alan Paton is head of the Science Collections Department of Royal Botanical Gardens, Kew, which includes the herbarium, fungarium, spirit collections, DNA and tissue bank, etc. He is member of Coordination Mechanism, Global Taxonomy Initiative of the CBD, Plants Conservation Committee, IUCN SSC, then Red List Committee, IUCN, then Fellow of Linnean Society of London. His research focuses on mechanisms to increase access and use of the collections and on the taxonomy and systematics of the Lamiaceae, particularly basils and alleles. So please come and give a lecture. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a very small announcement. There's a humble request from all of you to please check the bags in and with you and around you, because 2 bags are missing, and inside the bags there are mobiles and purses also. So it's a humble request, please check the bags, the ones which you are holding, and if there are any bags lying near you. So thank you.
Use this one. Sorry. Technology. Okay. 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Coleus and Plectranthus. Many of you may know these genera. They're quite widely used medicinally and horticulturally. And I've done a phylogenetic analysis. I'm going to say a bit about that, why we did it, and then use phylogeny to look at various medicinal uses. Try and keep this from out front of mind. So, Plectranthus and Coleus belong in Tribosome, the basils. They are pantropical, about just over 1,000 species, and you can tell a member of this tribe because the stamens go underneath. We go over the lower lip of the corolla rather than up under the upper lip, which most labiata do, like salvia, thyme, things like that. So we do know quite a bit about the phylogeny of the large scale of the basil and its relatives from those papers. And what today I'm really going to focus on is the Plectranthine, which is about 450 species plus. For those of you who know Plectranthus, I am not going to talk about Isodon. Isodon used to be a Plectranthus, but it's now in its own subtribe and differs in a way which I'll mention before from Plectranthus. So I'm really only going to talk about the true Plectranthus and the Coleus. So if you look at the diagram in the top left, all Plectranthini have their stamens together at the base of the lower lip. Isodon, for example, doesn't. The posterior stamens are halfway down the chain. And the floral structure of Plectranthini, despite having almost all of them having that stamen configuration, can change quite a lot and varies quite a lot. So if we go back to Bentham, who really set out the tribal arrangement of Lamiaceae, he recognised 5 genera within this group, which includes separate Coleus and Plectranthus. In the 60s, John Morton, looking at West Tropical Africa, merged Coleus into Plectranthus. It wasn't a new idea, but he felt it was untenable. But he did split the group generally into 10 different genera. But that was more or less followed by most people, except Kramer and Flora Sri Lanka maintained Coleus as a separate genus, and that was followed by the Chinese. So if you're an Indian, you could actually end up using either of those classifications. Some people would use Coleus, some people use Plectranthus, and complete confusion reigns. So how do we resolve this? It was interesting that both Morton and Kramer realised there were issues here. And we have a phrase in the UK, weasel words. You do something and you say, well, it might not quite be like that, but we're not sure, but this is the best we can do. And both of them kind of admitted that they were trying to do the best they could, and the answer might not be right. So, traditionally, the difference was a single character. Coleus, on the left, have fused stamens. 4 stamens actually fused together. This is a species close to the type of Coleus. Plectranthus, on the other hand, has 4 stamens in the same position, except they're all separate. 4 free stamens. However, you get things like this, which have separate stamens like Plectranthus, but otherwise look quite like Coleus. So there's a bit of an issue. Now, part of the reason we got into this mess is because people were looking at generic boundaries not across the whole range of material. The last time anybody looked at this across a whole range was Ricky in about 1897, and he basically just did exactly the same thing as what Bentham did. So this is an example from Africa. Morton's work was based on about 28 species. The concepts were taken on and used in Madagascar and South Africa. But there's about 450 species in this group. So we couldn't really tackle the problem until we had really tackled the main alpha diversity of the group in East and Southeast tropical Africa. So this is built on alpha taxonomic work in the areas where the genus is most diverse. We also looked at Thailand, where we've done flora treatments as well, and Indochina. So building up from this alpha taxonomic baseline, we could actually sample across the Plectranthini in proportion to what we thought the total variation was. So we ended up with a sample of about 20% of the species to examine and to stick into a phylogeny. So this is a phylogeny. And the Plectranthus seems to be split into about 6 different clades, which is a bit of an issue. Also, just note that Anisochilus and Pycnostachys are merged within Plectranthus there as well. So if I simplify that diagram, you come down to 3 clades in separate positions, 1, 2, and 3. Coleus 1, Plectranthus 1 contains the type of Coleus. Number 3 contains a type of Plectranthus. And its Coleus 2, if it's a genus, is separate. It's not been described before. So Plectranthus does. So let's look at number 1. This is the type of Coleus. So you can recognize this clade because the upper lip is shorter than the lower lip. The calyx pedicel attaches asymmetrically to the calyx. And there's a few other characters which usually work but don't always work. But generally, a combination of the calyx and the corolla will tell you you're in the Coleus clade. And Coleus contains an isochilus, which is also used medicinally in India. The second clade, this is the new one, has equal corolla lips, not unequal corolla lips, but its calyx has a symmetric attachment. And then again, there's a couple of characters which generally work. And finally, this is a true Plectranthus containing a type of Plectranthus, has equal lips, and the calyx is slightly, the attachment is symmetrical, but if you notice the lateral lobe of the calyx is nearer the lowest teeth of the calyx. So it's sort of asymmetric in the positioning of its teeth, rather, which can happen in the Coleus, but never quite like this. So we end up with 3 separate clades. If you look at the distribution of those clades, Coleus more or less paleotropic, Plectranthus largely restricted to southern Africa, but extending up as far as Ethiopia and into Madagascar, and 1 species in Sri Lanka. And its new one, Equilibrium, 42 species, again largely African, but with 2 species in India, one of which is Plectranthus mollis, which is used quite extensively medicinally. So I'm just going to nip back for a second. So as much as I would disagree with traditional taxonomy, we've moved from a classification which was based purely in morphology with 1 character which didn't work, to a classification which is based on molecular data, backed up with chemical data, and has about 4 or 5 morphological characters which support it. Is that true? So how can we use this to look at the medicinal use? This is some work we did back in 2004. We mapped within Plectranthus and Coleus only, none of the other genera, recorded medicinal use of the genus. So in light of this new phylogeny, which also contains other genera, we did the same thing. We did the same thing again. So those black lines in the phylogeny are where recorded medicinal use occurs. And you can see this, although there are areas where the signal is quite strong in that you have lots of terminals close together which are all medicinal, the general pattern is quite scattered. And just in passing, I might say more of this at the end if I've got time, but otherwise you can ask me. I think there are reasons for this, and they're based on the fact that actually we're not looking at all possible medicinal use here. We're only looking at patterns of recorded medicinal use. So the recorded medicinal use depends on people, not just the biological reality of the plant. So you're not necessarily going to get a true picture of what might be medicinal. If, on the other hand, we begin to look at chemistry and look at where the chemicals which are known to be active in various illnesses are, we might have a better idea of, if we map the chemistry onto this phylogeny, getting a lot more robust phylogenetic signal out of this analysis. So this is what we're doing now. We haven't finished it yet, but Coleus and Diterpenes, for example, is that we know this clade here accumulates those, and there are other sorts of diterpenes that exist in other clades. So there are issues with this in getting the chemistry. Plectranthus and Coleus have switched, the boundaries changed between lots of different new combinations and new names. So it's hard to pull it all together. With sampling, you have to catch things, put it in a phylogeny. You have to have a medicinal investigation in order to know what the chemistry is. So that's not available for all species. You can map specific medicinal use or general specific use. You can map various active constituents if you know what they are. And the conclusion here is really we need more data. And I think there's some interesting causes of why there's missing data. Medicinal data tends to come in two major forms. One is an ethnographic survey of a particular area, where you have lots of different plants, people record the medicinal use of lots of plants. They won't necessarily cover many species related to the ones you're interested in. The other way is you take a biochemical approach. You look at one species in depth, look at it really closely, but then you don't look at other species which might be related to it, and you don't necessarily record chemicals which you weren't interested in. You might want to publish a new sort of diterpene, so you won't report on the common diterpenes. So again, you get different data. Now, we'll go into that one. So pulling all this together actually needs a team. So this work began with alpha taxonomy. It involved chemists. It involved 8 authors in 4 different continents, one of which was Indian. It involved using molecular phylogenies. It involves using liquid chromatography. So my message to any students out there, despite what you've heard earlier today, collaboration can work. Using new tools can work. And think about the questions. And nobody can cover all those disciplines. So we do need to work collaboratively together to achieve this. So wearing my other hat, I managed IPNI for some time, and I was one of the people who was behind the plant list. So I've got a fairly good idea of what really annoys people about plant taxonomists, despite being a plant taxonomist. People thinking about scientists, but not taxonomists, and to be honest, a lot of chemists aren't even interested in taxonomy. What they want is to be able to understand the database, and we tend to use in our databases taxonomic terms like homotypic or heterotypic or synonyms, which people don't always get and don't understand what the consequences of those things actually mean. So they're quite easy to misuse the data. Different sources can differ. Which one do you use? Keep changing. There are about 10,000 changes a year at species level in flowering plants. Nobody can keep up with it. So we've got to think about how do you informatically manage this shifting array of data. And often, people want to use common names or trade names because they're interested in those. So how do you get one? We involved this project Medicinal Plant Name Services, which took a different approach, which doesn't focus on what botanists think is the correct name, which obviously is really important, right? But to a chemist, what they want to know is what names do I need to search literature for to find things out? Where does that data occur? For those of you who are sharply noticing, you will notice that is the wrong name. It should be Coleus barbatus. But that change was only made 10 weeks ago, and this database hasn't caught up. But this database also allows you to search using Coleus barbatus. It has common names, so if you're interested in common names, you can search with common names. And you can search using all synonyms rather than just one name. We did some work back in 2014 which suggested if you only use the currently accepted name in Plectranthus, you miss 87% of the literature about the medicinal use of Plectranthus. So those synonyms, which people don't understand, are really important for accessing information. So we have to think about ways of providing that overall picture of how do you get names. So, in conclusion, we've got 3 genera, not 2. There is some concentration of medicinal use in Coleus, but we need more data to do more studies. And users want simple answers, not long explanations. And we need help for guiding through the taxonomy situation. Excellent. Okay. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my future work, what I'm currently doing. So this missing data. This is Plectranthus barbatus. There's 16 species in this group, but we only have medicinal data for about 8 of them. And this is a good example. Very often we only have data of about 1 related species. So why is that? Why don't people look at all the species related to a medicinal species? So if you think about this ecologically rather than chemically or taxonomically, you have this concept of redundancy. In an ecosystem, you will have more than one plant performing the same function. And in theory, a possibility is medicinal floras have the same phenomenon, that a medicinal flora will have more than one plant that covers that illness. And these plants might occur in different habitats, but still accessible to the people. If you just add another one of the same species, you're not really boosting the pool of species you use, because that new species is likely to be growing in the same habitat as the existing medicinal species. Diversification looks at what do you need to have to enter an ecosystem. And to enter an ecosystem, you have to be doing something that the current ecosystem's not doing. So if you extend that into a medicinal flora, diversification would suggest that new things being added to a medicinal flora will have to have some functionality which isn't present in the existing flora. So again, if you just have a neighbouring species, something closely related to an existing medicinal species, it's not likely to get added because it's not going to add new value to that overall medicinal flora. It's neither giving you diversification, nor is it giving you increased redundancy. So I think if we're looking at how chemistry occurs in plants, we can't just rely on the reports of already published literature, because they will just simply reflect what's already known and what's already in the medicinal flora. If we're looking for new sources of the same compound, we may need a taxonomic approach, where you work out what all the relatives are and then systematically look at the chemistry of those to see if any of the same chemicals occur in the known medicinal plant, or are there any variants around that which may add more medicinal value. So at the moment what we're doing is going back to that phylogeny and trying our hardest to fill in as many gaps in that phylogeny as you can, and then we're going to look at the pattern of medicinal chemistry against that phylogeny. Thank you.
Dr. S.R.Yadav specialized on Plant Taxonomy and Ecology. He is currently a professor of botany in Department of Botany, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He studied the floristics of Western Ghats. He also worked on conservation of rare, endangered and threatened species of flowering plants. He is honored by various fellowships and awards such as FIAT, elected as President, Botanical Society of Goa, Best Teacher Award of year 1999 by Shivaji University, Honorary Member of Species Survival Committee of International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, IUCN, then V.V. Shivarajan Gold Medal of IIT, then Fellow of the National Academy of Sciences, India, 2009. So, sir, please give a
respected chairman, all botanists I will call, I will not say taxonomists. Basically we are botanists. And that way, really I am confused by listening many people exactly what I should do. Right. Why I am saying this? Now you know, in India, there are about 49,000 species of plants. And in India, there are more than 1 lakh botanists. For each species, there are 2 botanists to document about whatever information is there about those plants. Still, why we are not able to do the way others are? So this is my confusion. Number 2, I don't differentiate botanists and taxonomists. Botanists, we are trained botanists, and botanist has primary function to tell what is this, for what it is used, and from where it is found. These are the 3 questions every botanist is supposed to answer. It is not taxonomy. Taxonomy has something other function. Today I am going to talk on a very small topic which I am working for last 35 years. Small genus. When I started with that genus, there were some 5 species, and today one person added 5 more species to that genus from India itself. So how much increase in the species number? We talk about if we are sincere and committed, how something can change and exactly what needs to be done. This is the thing. And one thing, you know, we do research. It is actually, you do research for yourself. Most of the time, from morning to evening or anywhere I go, people talk about applications and use to human beings. I am a different botanist. I say it is not necessary that every plant has to be useful to human beings. But botanists are concerned with every species. And that way, even those species about which we don't know anything, we must study. And every species is a one thread of that delicate ecological network. And therefore, every species has to be monitored. Unfortunately, today, we all human beings only think, keeping human in the center, every one of us we will talk. And who will care for our plants whose use is not known? So that way I work. Anyway, Aponogetons is a small family. In the entire world, there are only 60 species. But it is one of the basal angiosperms. And all other angiosperms have come afterwards. Now this family, I will be talking in 10-15 minutes also, not more. Lecture is for, I can do for 2 hours here because of time. It is a monogenic family having only 1 genus. And about 60 species have been described so far from this world. And molecularly, it is well explored. Out of 60 species, 57 species have been, their sequences, many genes have been sequenced. And there is a, 60 species. It is a tuberous rooted aquatic plant. If you ask me what is economic use, I will not be able to tell. But I feel that it is very interesting to understand nature. So, distribution, tropical and subtropical regions of the world, and well studied evolutionarily. And you know, today, when I started, that time only 4 species were known. Today, there are 10 species in India. And all these 5 species, I mean, I am author for that in the sense, if I can add IU to the 4 species, you can understand what is need of exploration. We talk much. Really, are there taxonomists who go to the field and work? It is really, I mean, very few people go to the field and work. And if you really work, this is one example from which you can understand what is happening. Now, what are the questions I want to answer from this? There are some questions. What is present status of Aponogeton Lamiaceae in India? In herbarium, Calcutta Herbarium or bacterium, there is only one seed. After that, nobody has collected. It is collected from Assam. What is its status? Whether it is there? Is there anybody who can tell me where it occurs? Answer is no. Right? Now, is there apomixis in Aponogeton natans? You know, apomixis. Aponogeton natans produces thousands of seeds, one inflorescence. Do you mean that all the spories are fertilized? So there is a there is a possibility of apomixis in Aponogeton natans. What is reproductive barrier in sexual reproduction of Aponogeton nugae? Now there is one species which is restricted to about 5 square kilometer in the entire world, and which is facing reproductive barrier in sexual reproduction. So what are those barriers which we have to share? Then, what is the significance of Aponogeton satarensis? Aponogeton satarensis is a species which occurs on Karst plateaus or those plateaus, and its a close relative occurs in Madagascar. What is the phytogeographical significance? It is not just a new species, it has many other implications. Then, while Indian Aponogetons have significant diversity in embryo morphology, you know, I must tell you, we described one species, Aponogeton nataceae, and that species I have honored Dr. Natesh. And you know, it has unique embryo not only in Aponogeton, in entire angiosperms. Do you think that it has no meaning? What application I will tell? But it is a unique embryo in entire angiosperm, not only Aponogeton. Now these observations who will make? I cannot tell application, but how and why various character states in embryo morphology have evolved. You know, dipot and monopot we say, and gymnosperms which are polypteran we find. And then why there are many appendages in the embryo, so that there are great academic interest. What is relationship among Aponogeton crispus, Compaction, Aponogeton Untitled and Appendicular? We will come to that. Two Aponogeton crispus, Compaction and Untitled and Appendicular, representing a series of species. Then, last one, what is the significance of appendages on the embryo in Aponogeton nataceae? What is significant? As a botanist, as an academician, I want to know. And then, what is the taxonomic status of Aponogeton microphyllus? Roxburgh described Aponogeton microphyllus. Okay, somebody, Brugge, who is authority on Aponogeton, he merged it into Aponogeton undulatus. Since then, all we followed Aponogeton undulatus. We never thought, we never collected exactly, really it is Aponogeton separate, or it is undulatus and microphyllus are one and the same, or they are separate. Who will do it? So, we follow, and then what happened we will see. Now, see, so these are the basic things that we described. Now you can see this. 1968, 1982, 1994, 1915. So these species have been described in the last 2 decades. 100% increase in the number of species. If you concentrate on one even small group, there are many species yet to be discovered and described. Now, out of that 10 species, 5 species are endemic to India, and most of them are endangered or threatened or critically endangered. Now, do you mean that we should not bother? Because they don't have any economic importance, if you ask me. So, as a role, as a botanist, not taxonomist I am talking, what is my role? My role is to, you know, there are many people who look after plants which are human beings, but we are there for the plants whose use is not known to people today. So that is our major role, and who will look after these plants? Another thing, only Indian dioecious Aponogeton satarensis. You know why it is unique in the world? Aponogeton madagascarensis and Aponogeton, Deckera and this satarensis. These are two species which are dioecious habit, male and female plants are separate. Secondly, they have biforked spike, and that way they are unique in the group. Aponogeton brugini. It produces beautiful inflorescences, thousands of flowers, thousands of inflorescences in a population. None of the inflorescence sets seed, but it's embryological barrier or sexual barrier for that. Then third, Aponogeton metaceae, I will show you the embryo, and you can see that this is our Aponogeton appendicularis. Now, it has you can see this, all leaves which are submerged, they are in endemic danger, brackish water as well as fresh water, leaves all submerged by single embryo, 4 appendages. There is a cotyledon consent, chromosome number 2 and equal to 30, and we have collected even natural hybrids between Aponogeton, appendicularis and undulatus. Now you see this is a unique embryo. Unique embryo. You see this is that unique embryo. We will come to that. Now this is Aponogeton brugini. You know brugini, it is restricted to 5 square kilometers. And you know 5 square kilometers with this present rate, even 1-2 years are sufficient for disappearance of this species. And once we lose it, we cannot bring it back. So what is the role of botanists today? It is not only economic importance, it is our duty to further them. So you see this, and such a beautiful inflorescence, no seeds are formed. Very rarely 1 or 2 seeds are individual of fruit each other. So it has to equal to 56, organic, paddy fields, leaves erect and emergent. All leaves are erect and emergent. But in other Aponogeton, we have floating or submerged leaves. So far known only from the neighboring reproductive barriers and inflorescence. Inflorescence afterwards decay and does not produce. See the embryos, right? And I am going to talk on embryos in this one, how it is important to understand. Reproduction by a formation of new tubers or mother tubers. You can see the chain of tubers. About 15 to 20 tubers you find, one above. So that way. Now third one is Aponogeton crispus, which is the most common throughout India. Right? And see the embryo. Okay, common species, fresh water, leaves submerged, spike single, embryo without appendages and reproduction by sexual means. Only by seeds is it reproduces. It does not produce any asexual chromosome number 30. Now this is Aponogeton laconiensis. It is the only species which has yellow flowers. I am yet to collect. These are not my photographs. It is reported from India, and only one herbarium seed I have seen in it. Now whether today it exists, because it is collected about 50 years before, whether it exists in India, and it is from Assam region. Now, is there anyone who can tell me? See, what I am saying, field work, taxonomists go to the field work with life risk, document biodiversity, and their efforts, they shed their blood with snakes, wild animals, and they document biodiversity, and then people talk about biodiversity and utilization. But this biodiversity is known to forest department or every department because of taxonomy. And that way, they have contribution. So yellow flowers, chromosome number we don't know, nothing is known about that. Aponogeton matans, this is another species which produces many seeds, but all I am sure there are some seeds which develop by apomixis. Now this is Aponogeton metaceae. You can see the embryo here. This embryo here. See this. You know this embryo is this Aponogeton metaceae is restricted to the a pond of this all size in the entire world. In the entire world, this species is restricted to only the pond of this all size. I'm talking about seriousness of conservation. Who will conserve this? Right? And how will it come? Chromosome number 22, Maharashtra, endemic, freshwater, leaves submerged. Leaves grow 2 meters down in the water and inflorescence grows 2 meters and comes above water and then pollination takes. How those leaves photosynthesize? I don't know. After 2 meters height, they grow below water. So that way they are unique. 5 single embryo with 15 to 20 appendages. In no other angiosperms, any embryo has appendages or what we should call as what it belongs, I don't know. It has 50 to 20 appendages. And her chromosome number 30, then see Aponogetons appendages, which I described the first species with you see this 5/4+5, Maharashtra, relict endemic. We call it as a relict endemic because it is a very, very old species, probably before separation of this continent, when it's same, or Dioecious 5/4, and this one, chromosome number 26. Now it is relict, and see chromosome number is 26, lowest ploidy level. And that way, definitely it is a relict endemic. Then Aponogeton undulatus. Now see this Aponogeton undulatus, which has, unfortunately, see this propagules. See this species produces these propagules, and only through those propagules it reproduces. I have seen not less than 50 populations in peninsular India. None of the populations sets seeds. Though it produces inflorescences, but never seeds seeds. And it has chromosome number, which is 70 to 84 found throughout India. And this propagates by plantates formation on the inflorescence. 5 single embryo without appendages. And this has no embryo at all. Only indirect formation. This is okay. Now third species, which we described 2 years before from Kerala. That is mucinous species, and we have named as Ulpagandianus, Aponogeton Ulpagandianus, Kerala, freshwater, leaves submerged and roti, spikes, this is the character. That is also restricted to one lake only, small lake. That is also, and that pond, already that lake has been converted into football ground. Probably in 1 or 2 years we may lose that species. That is the condition. Why I am saying, why field work is very important. We don't know what is the field status. Only by counting species based on herbarium will not do. What is their present status in the country is a very essential thing. And we don't have field taxonomy. Nobody wants. So, see this. Now this is the Aponogeton. Last year I have gone to Lucknow. Fortunately, some students showed me photograph, and then I chased that species and went there and collected. And see this. This is treated as an Aponogeton undulatus. Now you tell me, are they? See this. Everything it reproduces sexually, and this was treated as an undulatus. Okay. Now, and chromosome number is 40. Freshwater use both submerged embryo and chromosome number. Now see this, both I have shown here. See the chromosomes on one side. Here you see it is 40 there, 70s, 84, 80s, any number can be see. Are they one and the same? So, Oxford, he first time described Aponogeton microphylum, and afterwards somebody merged it. We never bothered to see what is its status. So, Of course, I am taking help of molecular biology also to establish that it is a distinct species. We should take that, but definitely there are distinct species. I have shown there. Okay. Now, Ceylon, we have in Sri Lanka some 3-4 more species. This is our Indian subcontinent in which these are the only for embryo you can remember. This is the embryo you see. Of course, I have discussed. These are the chromosomes which I studied. Okay. And you can see the chromosome. Lowest chromosome number is in Aponogetons satarensis. Most of them are ectopic and others are follicular. Now, this was done by a long time. This is from Madagascar, Aponogeton decora. And I did it, long back. And I crossed them and I showed the cross. So long back I have shown, not that there is a need of these experiments, classical experiment tells us they are close related. And it is one witness for particular, continental drift areas, I would say. So that way it has only purpose. See these embryos. Now these embryos will clearly differentiate all the species. Give me embryo, I will tell what is the species of Aponogeton. You give me only one seed, I will tell you what is species. So some characters are evolved so well. And you see Aponogeton, Plectranthus, Jardin, they were Priscum, then you see the Ecology, Natans, Lamiaceae, then Microphyllum, Plectranthus, and lastly Satarensis. Each embryo is unique. And then you see, compare it. Here, can you see some evolution we can find out? If you think these are closely related species by embryo morphology. And see, these are the species I am showing. Natans, Ecology, Beginning, Satarensis, Crispum, Vulpingianus, Jacobsoni, Appendiculators, Microphyllum and Nutties. So these are the embryos. Now this study I have done for my own understanding. Okay, own understanding. How? If each student takes one group, one genus and works for whole India, I am sure you will be happy man to understand what. So this is a program, and I am just putting embryos here. It is not with Renner I have done it. She has been sequencing this and doing this diagram. See this, embryo. These are the embryos. Can we trace evolution of Aponogetons in India based on embryo? Okay, you can see this in it, and this way it looks. Now here, the embryo which 15 to 20 appendages I told is a discovery which is unique in the world. How many of us we know that in angiosperm, dicot and monocot which start we teach every day, there are some groups where embryo is with 15 to 20 appendages, nowhere else in the world. How that character evolved, why that character evolved, I am going to understand. See this embryo evolution in Aponogeton. So, how they are related to each other. And this is the group which forms both related to each other. So here I want to tell you, I have given only few messages that every group, every small group given, if Aponogeton, if I could add IU plus IU new species, you can understand it last decade. So I can talk a lot. My laboratory has described more than 74 species. I will not talk for all of them. What I want to tell, we are lacking in field work. Field work needs setting, getting hot in the sun, and getting, you will not have food also, and many of us we are not. There is yet to discover many more interesting discoveries from our country. This country is very vast, and we need field taxonomies. And usually their efforts are not recognized. We don't work for recognizing efforts. what I want to say with this word. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. S.R.Yadav, for giving very informative talk on this Aponogeton. So next speaker is Dr. Esteban Manrique, and his topic of this lecture is the real Jardin Botanico of Madrid conservation approach. Dr. Riol is since July 2018 the director of the Real Jardin Botanico of Madrid, Spain, that belongs to the Spanish Research Council. He obtained his PhD in 1979 by Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. After 23 years as assistant professor at the Faculty of Pharmacy of the Complutense University of Madrid, he got a position of research professor at the Spanish Research Council. Since 1990, he has occupied several official positions of responsibility as Deputy Director General in the Ministry of Science and Technology of Spain. Between 2009 and 2013, he was appointed as Director of the National Museum of Natural Sciences. His research work focuses on lichen chemotaxonomy, plant ecology and ecophysiology, and the study of the effects of air pollutants and atmospheric nitrogen deposition on Mediterranean ecosystems. He is author or co-author of 80 scientific publications, and he has directed or participated in about 30 research projects and contracts. So Dr. Riol, please.
Much for your presentation, and good afternoon. I would like first of all to thank the organization for inviting me to this symposium. It's for me a pleasure to be here and to have this opportunity to introduce all of you about the Royal Botanical Garden of Madrid in Spain. I also want especially thanks to Professor Mao that very kindly invited me to be here, give me this kind of opportunity. Sorry for passing from a very taxonomical issue that has been the three previous presentations to a promotional presentation of our garden. But for me, it's a pleasure to show you and to promote what we are doing there. And just in the case some of you want to go there or collaborate with our scientists in doing research, also taxonomy, even classical taxonomy, that means morphological taxonomy, but as well molecular taxonomy, phylogenetics, and so on and so forth. My idea is to be very brief, telling about the history of the Botanical Garden. Then, in a very brief way as well, to show you how is our Botanical Garden, and at the end to make a conservation approach, because you will see that this Botanical Garden was founded in 1775, by the King Ferdinand VI, then moved from the previous premises to a new one in 1781 by Charles III, and in 1939 he started to belong to the Spanish Research Council. That means that a very historical and old work with plants passed through the most important research institution in Spain. So this is a kind of recognition of the importance of botany within our history in science. This means that our botanical garden is now celebrating 265 birthday. So we have been working there for a very long time, more than 2.5 centuries, and this is why, because this is important. What is doing in there is very important, and for that reason we are very worried about what happened in the future. The botanical garden is has an herbarium with more than 1,350,000 specimens. The most important thing is that we keep most important collections, all collections coming from the expeditions to South America and Southeast Asia. But that most of the drawings that came from those expeditions are preserved in the archive of the Botanical Garden. We also have a very old library with more than 32,000 books and 2,000 journals. A very big living collection. When I say very big, I mean taking account the size of Spain. It's not comparable with India, with other countries. About 5,500 specimens, a germoplants bank with many sections, and a unit for technological research aid. The Botanical Garden is divided into departments: Department of Biodiversity and Conservation. This department is mainly developing three research lines: vascular plant systematics, floras and monographs, which is doing the flora of Iberian Peninsula, that means including Portugal, Spain and Balearic Islands, not including Canary Islands because it's a completely different flora. Canary Islands has its own flora. Plant evolutionary biology, patterns, processes and mechanisms. This is the other line of research. Ecology, conservation, aquatic macrophytes and global chains. This line will disappear because the researcher has retired very recently and there is no any student following his research. And the other department is the Department of Mycology and Biology, with one main line of research: fungi and biophytes, biodiversity and conservation biology. This is the places where we are working around the world. That means that we are producing a lot of work with a lot of collaborations in many parts of the world. And this is the production of the description of new species in the last 20 years that has been the product of the collaboration and the description of new species around the world as well. That means that we have a very broad, very big, broad, widespread collaboration in every country. And I would like to now to show you how is our botanical garden. This is a schematic representation, and you can see that the botanical garden is not too big. We will see some figures later on. It's divided in three main terraces, one in below, one in the middle, and one in the upper part. This occupies 8.2 hectares. It has a total staff of 62 people and is a typical date, a total length of garden edges of 19,000 meters. It's just to have an idea of how is this botanical garden. You have to take into account that this botanical garden is in the middle of the town. We will talk about it in brief. In the first terrace, we maintain different quadrants, we can say, where we cultivate ornamental plants. Here you can see Dahlia. Dahlia was discovered by the genus Dahlia was discovered the first time from Mexico by Antonio José Cabanilles 2 centuries ago. And now has been distributed as an ornamental plant all around the world. We have different quadrants dedicated to ethnobotany and medicinal plants, to all of the roses that all of the species of the genus rose that are living in Spain, for example. The water aromatic plants are those endemic plants that can be grown at this part of Madrid. Also, we dedicate 4 quadrants to cultivate orchids and fruit trees, just to show the people how fruits are not coming from the market, but also from the tree. That's important. We also maintain a pond with aquatic plants. In the middle, we have a middle terrace that we call the terrace of the botanical schools. That means that we plant here a total of 13 plots or 30 quadrants containing species from all around the world, including the Spanish one, but ordered by families. And just to show that people are going there how the plants are related each other. We are following, in this case, the classification done by Esteban, but we are now changing the classification, but will be a difficult job that has been solved. And in the upper part, there is a terrace, which is with a different design. The previous one was a more classical design, coming from the influence of the 18th century, but this is more influenced by the 19th century because the garden has passed all along these different periods. And here we maintain several trees and bruises from different parts of the world. As I said, the Botanical Garden has been existing for 265 years. It has been located in the middle of the town. Now, he is subjected to a different kind of factors that in some way are threatening. So we are not we don't only want to maintain the diversity of Iberian Peninsula, but also would like to maintain and conserve the total plants that are living in our garden, and to try to preserve from those factors that are now threatening them. For that reason, we have developed and we have started a new project just to study different threats to the plants living in our garden. The first one is the age of the garden. The second is soil compaction. Third is air pollution. Fourth, pests and diseases. And fifth, climate change. As you can see, this is an aerial view of the botanical garden. Most of the trees are quite big and they produce so much shadow. Most of the trees are older than 100 years, and they produce so much shadow that means that very few things can grow beneath. And the solution could be to reduce the number of trees, but the law in our community forbids to cut healthy trees. So we have to wait until a strong wind or a disease kills them to eliminate. We are limited for the legislation. So the second factor we have discovered is the soil compaction. This is a very important problem. Being in the center of the city, this means that most of the trees very old. That means that they might have very deep roots. But because of the compaction, the water cannot go through, and the fine roots dead because there is not enough oxygen to maintain, and the trees try to maintain only superficial roots. That means that at the minimum winds, without very strong the storm will fall down. I don't know if it is maybe a trade-off between the conservation and to eliminate some trees, but we are very worried about that. Sorry. Another problem is pollution. As I told you, this is in the center of Madrid. The traffic is incredible, very similar. Well, maybe not so poor than Calcutta. That means that plants have to suffer every day a lot of contamination coming from the exhaust of the traffic. Here you can see how is the cloud of contamination in a clear day. The main pollutants that can affect plants are ozone and nitrogen oxides. Pest and disease are also another fact that can affect our plants. We have several pests in the very old ones too in the garden. The main one is that one produced by Armillaria melea that is affecting trees and some shrubs. And also the Ophiostoma noulmi, that disease that is transmitted by a beetle that attack ulmi, the different species of the genus Ulma. We started a project just to see the distribution of Armillaria melea, and you can see it's occupying the whole space, quite the whole space of the garden. This work has been done by my Pat Martin, and she discovered 7 different ribotypes using DNA analysis. And it's very difficult to eliminate. We try to remove the ground and to put a new ground, but the Armillaria is still there and reproducing, and it's very, very difficult. And it's still attacking our trees and our shrub. This is a typical example of Buxus ampervirens, how it's attacked by different fungi and also Armillaria. And you know that the length of bushes we have in the garden is quite high, and the number of plants is very high. This is the case of Ophiostoma noulmi, graphiosis. This is an ulmus minor that was affected several years ago, and in a few days, this is the beetle that transmits the spores of the fungi, and in a few days, this is the results of this. But this is not the only one. This is one of the rest. No? Another problem we have with other insects. The main one is we have with Paisanicia archon. Paisanicia archon is a butterfly that has arrived to Spain from South America, has been seen in a neighbor garden, which is the Parque del Retiro, and we caught some examples, some samples in the Botanical Garden. For that reason, the only way that we found to defend our palm trees is to cover with a net to avoid butterflies to get the upper part of the plant where they put the eggs and develop the caterpillars that eat the whole plant. The other one is Tidalima persperstalis. This is another butterfly that is affecting mainly the Buxus shrubs, but at least this is not arriving yet to our garden, but this is invading southeast Spain. So we have to be prepared just in case it arrives to the garden to maintain it as well as possible, as good as possible. And the other one is the Rhinocophorus ferruginous. This also attacks palms, mainly the phoenix, the genus Phoenix. And also, it is not seen yet in the Botanical Garden. It is also has been also introduced in the east, mainly of Spain, outside Spain. And the last factor we are trying to trade is the climate change. We know exactly which are the consequences of the climate change. The first one is the more intense and frequent storms with stronger winds that threats the big trees. The other one is longer droughts, because most of the rains concentrate in the stormy weather, and a reduction of the total rainfall for a year. That means that we have to water more than necessary or more than other years. The reduction of the relative air humidity, that is also very important for some of the trees. The increase of air temperature that will affect all the plants, mainly acting directly against its physiology. And the facilitation of the entrance of new alien and invasive species like the waterflies we were talking about 2 slides ago. For that reason, within this context, we started a project just to start to follow up the phenology of several indicator plants, just to see how these different factors that are acting all together at the same time are affecting different in different ways the plants we have selected. We are now in this project collaborating with the National Agency of Meteorology in Spain, which is very important for us and for them. And within this, I would like to make this presentation about the Climate Change Alliance of Botanical Gardens. 2 years ago, in December 2018, some directors of botanical gardens around the world met in Melbourne, Australia, and we were discussing in which way these different botanical gardens can help together to fight against the effects of climate change that is coming, and in which way botanical garden can help the politicians and the citizens just to fight against the consequences of the climate change. These are some of the attendants to today's first meeting, and the idea was to prepare a bigger symposium, maybe in 2021, from next year, also in Melbourne, just trying to come together more than 10, if it is possible, all of them, botanical gardens together. This is the first declaration that was signed by the participants at that moment. This is the distribution, the actual distribution of the few botanical gardens and international organizations dealing with botanic research around the world. But the idea is to fill more with more botanical gardens to support this very good climate change alliance. This is an example of the different landscapes that these 10 botanical gardens preserve and conserve. And thank you very much indeed for your attention. And if any question, I'm here.